if I could give you any size team, any funding you wanted, can you give me like the top 3 things you would love to add to your game that you just can't in your current situation? Or even 1, that's fine.
For this game in particular, um, probably the biggest thing that I think we talked about that we really wanted to do was the campaign. Like last year we spent a lot of time talking to publishers and trying to, you know, get funding, and part of that was going to be expanding the team and what would we put in and that sort of stuff. So we've had a lot of discussions around this, and the biggest one I think was the campaign. We really wanted to make it longer and make sure that all of the mechanic stuff was in the tutorials slightly differently than how we have it now. Um, but it was yeah, I think that it's depth. Like when there's only two of us, we're like, okay, it's a light strategy. It's something that realistically, if you're a casual player, you can pick it up and play it. And we've had people who get into Zen mode and build these ridiculously large stations, or they'll just sit and play it for a few hours, and it's easy enough to get into without needing to learn like hundreds of little mechanics and things. And as you say, your sewage backed up somewhere. There are no roads in space to have to deal with. So it's a different kind of thing. But what we really wanted to do was just add the depth. That when there's only two of you, you can't make the galactic domination 4x of Stellaris or what have you. But we really wanted to make something in that direction that was still kind of accessible by more players. And I think what we really wanted to do is just have more. It's just more of what we're doing right now, and that's what I think funding or more people or what have you would have done for us. I mean, we have enough ideas about this game to fill two more games if we wanted to, or one really, really, really big game.
Mhm.
Um, and it's a fascinating process at the start with uh, brainstorming, in that kind of pre-production phase where you're like, okay, this is the idea right now. Now that we've kind of gone past the yes, we're going to do this. Like, what are the actual mechanics? What's the storyline that we want to tell? How do we want to do this? And there's always too much. Like, ideas are never a problem.
Yeah.
And I think most indie developers are like this. Like you talk to them and like, okay, what's your backlog of ideas? And even for any given game that you make, there's always more stuff that you want to put into it that you don't have time for. So it's a tricky question in the sense of there's always more. And it's really, for us, we look at it and go, okay, well, maybe we'll put this in a sequel or maybe an expansion pack or something, because realistically, we couldn't do it with just the two of us. And I think if you had a bigger team, if you had a bigger budget, I do wonder sometimes if you have just the same problem on a bigger scale. It's that sure we put in all this stuff, but we've still got these ideas for even bigger things that we would love to do if we had more time or more money or whatever it is. Nobody's going to give you an unlimited budget and unlimited team size. So uh, time, honestly, like even if you scaled up the team and the budget, you still got to release something. You still got to get it out the door. So yeah, just I think just more of what we're doing, more upgrades, more recipes for how we build things, more campaign content. Um, that was really, I think, what we were looking at adding in.
I had you started talking about it a little bit, but this fascinates me probably the most about um not AAA games. I guess it probably follows a similar process, just way more bureaucracy. But can you walk us through like what it's like when you start the seed is planted in your mind about this game you want to, I'm assuming it's a game you wanted to play, right? Most people don't make a game they don't want to play. Um, what does it look like from that initial like, man, you know what I'd really like to play? Starport Delta or whatever it was at that point in your head, through like conceptualizing it, through to getting Ian to join, right? Through to like actually deciding to, okay, we're doing this. Like what does that pre we're doing this phase look like?
Well, okay, so it's a bit. So Ian and I have been working together outside of games for quite a long time, and we've also been making kind of prototypes and talking about game ideas for almost as long. So we've got other kind of prototypes and things that we've worked on that have not quite got off the ground for various reasons. And part of that discussion, I guess, initially when the last project that we worked on, we kind of got to the point where we were like, actually, this is too big, and this was the big reason why we stopped. And we realized that we hadn't planned out as much as we should have, and we kind of started it with the hey, let's put together a prototype to get it to this local convention and just see what we can do, and just kind of ran with it. And that was fun, but yeah, we kind of got to the point where we were like, this needs to be a team of 20 people if we're going to actually do this justice and not take another decade and be out of place in the market. So when we stopped and we kind of took a break for a bit, and then we're like, okay, right. As I said, we got like a whole backlog of ideas. What are the things we want to do? So we look at our ideas list and we say, right, what are the things we think are feasible? What can the two of us make? And also part of it is looking at the market and saying, okay, get our prognosticator hat on and say, what do we think is going to be, something the market wants in, the next couple of years. And at the time, there was not as many space games. And we've seen over the last 6 months in particular, we've had quite a few awesome space games come out. And we've had some interestingly, some space base building type games as well, or things that have a city building element to them, even if it's not necessarily a science fiction aesthetic. So I think we were spot on in terms of people want this kind of game, and some of our reviews and things have been like, there are not enough station building games, and there's not enough of this kind of thing in the market, and that's really hard to predict, right? It's really hard to look at the market and say, where's the gap, especially when you've got such a big lead time. It's not like you're churning this out over a weekend. So there's that degree of what are we predicting will be successful, or not necessarily successful, but what do people want? And people talk about the market cycles. Well, there's pirates, and then there's ninjas, and then there's pirates again. Mm-hmm. And that's very true. Like as hilarious as that is, like you can absolutely see waves of these themes that come through in games, and so reading that a little bit and saying, okay, what do we want to make? The core idea it usually starts off for us as like a single sentence. Usually that's that. What's the 10-second pitch or what have you? And for us it was we wanted something that was an accessible sim city in space. Like we wanted something that was we've played a lot of strategy games and a lot of city builder games, so strategy was a big part of it, and we wanted to make something that would do that.